Are you accidentally sabotaging your designs every time you use Illustrator? Hi, my name's Daniel White, also known as Dansky. I'm a designer and instructor with Envato, and honestly, I've seen countless designers make these same mistakes. It slows them down, it's frustrating, and it ruins their work. And these are mistakes that I've learned to avoid after 20 years of designing professionally. So in this video, I'm going to show you the biggest Illustrator pitfalls, how to dodge them, and this is going to save you time, reduce frustration, and ultimately improve the quality of your work. So for this first one, when creating shapes in Illustrator for a logo or an illustration, it can be very tempting to try and draw both sides of a line. Instead, what I'd recommend doing is using something like the pencil tool, or you can use the pen tool. And we're just going to draw a nice smooth curve. There we go, that's not too bad. And if you're wondering how I got it that smooth with a mouse and relatively little skill, we'll come back to that one a bit later. But what I can do is I can chunk up the path, and then I can change the cap type to round. Let's make it even thicker. And then what we can do is grab the width tool, and rather than having to play around with both sides of the stroke or the line, I can simply adjust the width here. So we could thicken up one end, or we could thicken up the middle point. And then we'll just bring these in so they kind of taper off, and it tapers off at a really consistent rate. And one mistake I see a lot of designers make is they'll do these paths manually and the tapering is inconsistent. And what we can also do actually, just to try and smooth this out, is grab the smooth tool. Hey, bonus tip. And just run that over. Now this will change your anchor points, but if we're just freehanding some illustration and we need this done nice and quickly, this can be really good in a pinch. Right, next up, we want to generate some colors. Now I've got two colors at either end of the spectrum I want to create. I want some colors in between these as well. So rather than pick these manually, which is slow and time consuming, we're going to select them both, double click the blend tool. We'll change that to specified steps. Let's just pick a low number for now. We'll go with something like 4. And we need to make the blend. So what we can do is click on this shape here, and then click on this shape here. And we now have a blend, and we've got lots of lovely colors in between. Oh, what a tasty gradient that's going to make. Let's go to Object and then expand the blend. And now from the swatches panel, we can click the menu icon and then add the selected colors. And it adds all 6 of these as global swatches, and global swatches are amazing, and we'll come back to them a bit later. Right, this next one is fantastic if you love working with text. So you can see I've got some text here. And this is the font Lifain? I don't know how to say that. Right, this next one is amazing if you love working with type. Sometimes when you download a font, you'll type your words in and it won't look as good as the preview. But before you throw it away and think, this isn't the font for me, check for stylistic alternates. So you can see here, if I select the G, I've got one lurking there with a lovely swooshy tail. And to check if your font has any stylistic alternates, go to glyphs. And then you can have alternates for current selection, or just view all of them for that particular font. And you can see I've got lots of lovely alternates there as well. Now, Envato have loads of beautiful fonts on their site, and many of them come with those stylistic alternates. So definitely worth checking for before you do write off a font if it doesn't look quite how you want it from the beginning. Duplicating shapes can be quite manual. We can drag with Alt or Option Shift, Command or Control D to repeat. But then if I want to change the size of that one, I've got to go and change all of them manually. That's no good. So what we can do instead is select the star, go to Effect, Transform. This panel is incredibly powerful. And we'll just throw in a number of copies. We'll go with 10. And then we'll move this horizontally. And you can see we get our 10 copies with a horizontal offset. We can actually go higher than 100. So let's be cheeky and type in 120. And there we go. And now if I go and change the properties of the original shape, you can see they all get updated. So it's a massive time saver. So what we can do now is, this is all technically still one shape with an effect. So if I go to Object and Expand Appearance, I've now got all of these as individual shapes that I can do all manner of crazy things to, like this. Oh, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's put those back. Calm down, Dan. Right, next up we have another star. Oh, there's a running theme today. So what we're going to do is select this, go to the appearance panel, And you can see here we have a stroke in black with 10 point in weight. Now it could be very tempting to copy and paste and scale this up and do the same and then try and manually fiddle around with this. Please don't do that. What we're going to do is select this one. We're just going to duplicate that stroke and we're going to apply a path offset. So let's give this a value of, let's go for 40. And then what we could do is select this again, duplicate it, grab the bottom one, and we'll apply another path offset. And we'll go even higher this time. There we go. 80 looks good. Now, these are just effects on that original shape. So if I actually go and change the original shape, you can see all of the effects that are stacked up over here. In this case, many offset paths, they all update with it. And honestly, this feature is incredibly powerful, whereby you stack multiple effects on a single object. And I'll show you a bit more of this when working with text a bit later as well. So following on with our lovely triple star thing we've created, it can be very easy to just manually recreate this if you need to. We don't need to do that. We can actually save this within this document as a graphic style. So we'll open up the panel. We'll simply drag it in, and now we've got it there. You can see we've got our triple star there. We can get rid of this. We can go and create another fantastic shape, like a square. Oh, beautiful. We've just got to click this once, and that effect and all of those appearance effects here are instantly applied, and we can go and edit them if we need to. And this is just a massive time saver. Right, this next one isn't really a mistake, but it's fantastic. So we've got Envato, loads of stuff here, love it. We also have the Gen AI tab. And if we click this, we've got lots of different things we can do. So we've got Image Gen here, where we can generate an image. We've got Image Edit, where you can upload one of your images and you can instantly remove the background, or you can upscale from a low-res image to 4K in this example. I love this. Scale up Nana to 4K, brilliant. You could change it to something similar. We could replace something. We can expand it. So you've got the cropped version and you expand it out. And then we have generate video as well. So tons of AI stuff here. And we've got video generation. So you can type a prompt and generate a video. You can generate music. You can generate voice. You can generate graphics. Right, this next one is fantastic if you've created an illustration and you then have to go and change the colors manually, and even worse, if you've made a gradient, you've got to go and pick all the colors and change them. Please don't do that. Instead, select this, go to Edit Colors and Recolor Artwork. Now you can just drag these around freely like this, or you can unlink, and then we can just change each color individually. So we could do something like that. Oh, that looks pretty cool, actually. Now you can just reset if you decided you don't like it, but this is a much easier and faster way to quickly change the colors of your design without going in and faffing around in the swatches panel. That just wastes a lot of time. Right, I've been using the Pathfinder panel for a long time, and this is something that I didn't learn until much later in my career. So you can select these two shapes and we can unite them together. There we go, they're now combined. The problem is this is permanent, so we're working distractively. How do we not do that? Well, all we do is select the two shapes and instead hold Alt Option and click on the Pathfinder option. So now I've united them, but if I double click to go inside this compound shape, as it's known, I can now freely move these around, and I see in real time how that combination changes. It's flipping fantastic. And the great thing about this is that if I do select this, and then I think I'll need to open up my actual Pathfinder panel now, what I can do is I can expand it, or I can release it, and I get my original shapes back. So now we're working non-destructively. Okay, another great one that I didn't use for a long time, and this is amazing if you have to align lots of things, is aligning to the key object. So here, the thicker box, that's the key object. It's in the center. I don't want to move it, but I want to center everything else around it. So we're going to select everything. And then what I'm going to do is click again and define the key object. So I'm going to click here. You can see it becomes highlighted with a chunky blue border. And now what we're going to do is click center, both horizontally and vertically. And you can see the key object doesn't move, but everything else aligns centrally to it. Did you know that you can actually make guides out of anything? So if you've been struggling with trying to line things up, you can actually turn any shape into a set of guides. So here I've got some text, or it was once text. Now it's just a set of shapes because I've gone type and create outlines. And now we can also go to view. We can go down to guides and choose make guides. And you can see we now have some guides here. And just like your regular guides, you can click and snap to these. So yeah, if you need some custom guides and you want to try and line things up, but you feel restricted to horizontal and vertical rulers and all this dragging out business, don't worry, you can now make anything into guides very quickly and easily. Right, so earlier on, I was showing off my terrible pencil tooling skills and drawing smooth things. There we go. Lovely. Now, the easiest way to draw smoother curves is to double click the pencil tool and make sure you have this dragged all the way to the right, the fidelity here. Now, this is going to automatically smooth out your curves, so you may not want that, but if you do, it can be very useful. Also, make sure you have edit selected paths checked. And then what you can do is you can actually resculpt a path by dragging over it. So if you don't get it right the first time, don't worry about it. Just redraw over it. I think that was actually worse, but you can just keep redrawing over it. And then rather than having terrible pen tool or pencil tool lines like this, like if I try and do this now, please don't laugh at me. Look, I'm using a mouse and I'm lacking skill. Look at the difference. Just look at the difference. So if you need smooth curves, definitely make sure you drag that fidelity slider up. It's awful. Wow. This next tool is fantastic if you need to create a target or a wagon wheel or a spider's web. Ooh, wagon wheel. I think that was a chocolate bar back when I was a kid. Anyway, let's not get distracted, Dan. Select the polar grid tool, click and drag. Now that doesn't look especially useful until you use the up, down, left, right arrow keys. And now we can make concentric circles. We could make a radar. We could make a spider's web, or we could get rid of those radial dividers. And now all of a sudden we've got like a wagon wheel starburst thing. And then we can hold shift as we create the shape just so we get a perfect circle. And you can see to create something like that is much quicker and easier than doing it manually with line tools and ellipse tools and all that stuff. Right, if you ever want to create parallel lines around a design, particularly on something like text, we kind of did this earlier with the star, what we're going to do is build this in the appearance panel. Now, first of all, let me just add a stroke and show you what happens if you do this normally. Let's go and add that black. You can see this doesn't look great, and we can't actually choose where to align the stroke to. So let's get rid of that because what we're going to do is open up the amazing appearance panel again. We've got our fill here. So we're going to duplicate this, select the bottom one. We'll pick a color. Now these do work like layers. So at the moment, the black is under the red. We can't see it, but we're going to add an offset path. And we're going to chunk this up a bit like that. And there you go. The offset path runs around the outside of the text. And the great thing about this is this effect is now fully editable. So we could stack up multiple strokes and fills with different effects, create an insane text effect. We can still change all of the text properties, including the font, and we could even go and save that as a graphic style. And the mistake I made many years ago is that I wouldn't use the appearance panel. And instead, what I would do is I would just select my text, go to Object, Path, and then Offset Path down here. And unfortunately, that is permanent and you can't apply it to live text. It's just the worst way to do it. So if you're going to do something like this, make sure you maintain that flexibility by using the appearance panel. Right, using this text again as an example, the next one is outline mode. Now this is amazing for troubleshooting. Honestly, I use this all the time. You must use this if you're working in Illustrator. So what I can do is select something or don't, it doesn't matter. Just press Command or Control Y. You can see the option up here. And what this does is give us a styleless wireframe of our design. So you can see here, it just shows me the text. It doesn't show me anything else. And then if I go to Object, Expand Appearance, what it's doing is it's expanding the appearance effects. So in this case, the path offset. And now I can see all of the geometry of my shape. And the great thing about this is, let's ungroup this and move the text out. If you need to go and fine tune anchor points and just make detailed changes without having to contend with color, for example, you can really get into the nitty-gritty and identify problems. Honestly, it's amazing. If you've got anchor points that are overlapping or on top of each other, you just go into outline mode, you fix it, you get it sorted, get rid of any stray anchor points that are left lying around, and then you come out of outline mode and yeah, you can just carry on working. Honestly, it's fantastic. Right, next up, repeating around a circle. Now I did this for a long time. I would do this, copy, paste, rotate, copy, paste, rotate, and so on. It's really slow and it's kind of limited. So what I'm going to do is I want to create a clock, for example. So I've got a line here. Now I'm going to actually add, with the pen tool, a single anchor point. Now this is invisible. I kind of like this trick. What I'm going to do is select the line, press R for the rotate tool. I've got to find this point again, and now I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and click. Now this lets me rotate around this point, but also enter specific values. So I'm going to go 360 degrees divided by, and you can type any number you like. I'm going to go for 12, 12 hours on a clock. Now I'm going to click copy, and you can see it copies that there. I'm press Command or Control D, and it's just going to keep repeating that. So I'm going to end up with 12 lines, all equally spaced apart. So you don't have to do it manually anymore. If you want 30 of these lines spaced apart, just do 360 degrees divided by 30. It does the math, copy, repeat, and you're done. Right, next up, we're going to look at a trick to create a dotted line. Now, creating a dashed line is relatively easy. If you are doing it though, please don't do this. Oh goodness, no, please don't do that. So what we do is select a shape with a stroke. It can be any shape you like. Go to the stroke panel and choose dashed line, and you can adjust all of the properties and you can change the gaps and everything. So there's your dashed line. But how do you create a dotted line? Well, it's really simple. What you do is you set the dash length to 0, and we'll make the gap, let's just say 20. That looks a bit weird until we change the cap type to rounded, and you can see we now have dots. So we have a dash width of 0, and it rounds off the sides of those, which does actually give us a circle. And we can increase the gap to adjust the spacing between the dots, and then we can adjust the weight of the stroke to adjust the size of the dots. And the great thing about this is, even if I round off corners, you can see how it all changes in real time. My goodness, that is so satisfying. Oof. So I've just prepared a random shape here that kind of looks like a rubber duck mixed with a pigeon or something. I'm not really sure, but if we select this, what I would normally do is go into outline mode, and I have a tendency to use the direct selection tool to delete pieces, delete segments between anchor points, but that does actually completely cut the path. So if you want to retain the path, what you can do is select this, grab the pen tool, and then if you click, or hover I should say, over an anchor point, you can see the icon changes to a minus. And if I click this, it's going to maintain that connection. So all I have to do then is just go in with the direct selection tool and make some adjustments. So rather than completely breaking the path altogether, you just remove the anchor points like so. And then actually this can be quite useful, because sometimes you can realize that you don't actually need that many anchor points. So there you go. I've created something very similar with just 2 anchor points, and all those other ones in between, well, they're just kind of making it harder for me to edit that shape. So it can be a very good way to go through a shape or a logo or a graphic you've done, remove any unnecessary anchor points, and then just clean everything up, which makes it a lot easier to edit in future. Right, when it comes to knocking one shape out of another or slicing up shapes, it can be very tempting to use the knife tool. But the problem with this is it's permanent and destructive, and it's freehand. So you can do this, but it kind of does its own thing, and it's not really ideal. So instead, what I like to do is I like to either draw lines, or I'll use a shape here. So let's try the line first. We're going to select just the line, go to Object, down to Path, and choose Divide Objects Below. And then as you'll see, the line gets consumed and we've got a clean slice. Now it is still destructive and permanent, but this way we're not relying on a freehand knife tool. We can control our lines. Or what I could do is take the circle here, just select that shape that I want to use to punch a hole through everything, go to path, divide objects below, and then boop, boop, I've got that segment cut out. And I still get to keep this piece as well. So yeah, a much more useful way to cut out one shape from another. Yeah, definitely don't use the knife tool. Not very useful. And last of all, we have global swatches, and these are an absolute must use. And you can tell it's a global swatch because it has the little white tag in the corner. And if I click this here, this illustration, and I'm just going to add the swatches. There we go. Now you could use Recolor artwork, but once you've got something as a global swatch, what you can do is double click on the swatch. And this might be like a huge document you've got or a massive illustration. If I want to change this green to a different color, I just literally have to do it from the global swatch, and every instance of that color throughout the entire document gets updated. Please, 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 if you're going to be adding swatches and wanting to change them at any point in the future on a large scale, just go into that swatch, check the global box, and then thank me later. Honestly, it's a massive time saver. And there we go, that wraps up the course. So hopefully you enjoyed this one and learned something new. Again, a big thank you to Envato for having me here. Always a pleasure. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.